Kulalwa nabani kwamasipala ukuze uqeshwe. This is a Facebook post made by a young lady looking for employment and job security. So now, picture yourself living in a world where survival doesn't depend on your skills, but on the price of your body. In a society that is drowning in poverty and unemployment, too many people are forced to trade dignity for opportunities. Good evening, this is AMM TV. I am Nontethelelo Sethulo Chirwa. Tonight, we are discussing and debating a topic that is often overlooked: sextortion, when power demands flesh. I'll be driving this show with my co-host Uqamga Maduna. Tonight we are asking, is sextortion downright illegal, or is it a favor for a favor? Africa, let's talk. Before we begin with our discussion, let's take a moment to watch a short animation that shed light on hidden realities of what is sextortion.
Sextortion happens when sexual favors are demanded in exchange for services, opportunities, or rights. In workplaces, it may involve promotions, contracts, or jobs offered only on the condition of sex. In education, students can be pursued to trade marks, scholarships, or admission for sexual compliance. In law enforcement, victims may be asked for favors in return for dropping charges, fast-tracking documents, or ensuring protection. Even in healthcare, access to medicine or treatment can be tied to sexual demands. Unlike traditional corruption, where money is the currency, sextortion makes the body itself the payment. It merges sexual exploitation with abuse of power, making it one of the most hidden but damaging forms of corruption. It can also come in the form of cyber blackmail, where someone tricks or pressures you into sending sexual images of yourself and threatens to share the pictures on social media unless you comply with their demands. Nancy Hendry, a senior advisor for the International Association of Women Judges, states that abusing a position of authority to extort sex is not only a form of sexual abuse, but also a form of corruption, where sex rather than money is the currency of the bribe.
The animation highlighted the intricacies of sextortion, and it reveals how it is not much different from sexual harassment. And as the animation stated, it is a form of corruption which sex rather than money is the currency of the bribe. This makes the realities of sextortion much darker. In Uganda, prison officials were abusing female prisoners in exchange of life-delivering medication. And in Central America, border guards were demanding sex from females in order to exchange for them to travel north. And you know, Sethulo, here in South Africa, we do have cases of students, of teachers demanding sex from students for good marks.
And according to News 24 reports, there were cases where female students were demanded to sleep with educators so that they get good grades.
And in some instances, women are told they have to provide sexual favors to benefit financially or career-wise. And that reveals how deeply the abuse of power has rooted itself in our communities.
And you know, in an article by Corruption Watch, it is stated that for over 10 years they received disturbing cases from basic to higher education, with 3,417 cases that are from basic to higher education. And also with SETA Education and Training Authority comes with 183 cases and 67 cases that are from TVET colleges. You know, this highlights the realities of how hard it is to secure education from primary to tertiary level.
And since laws against gender-based violence acknowledge consent as a defense, even in circumstances of compulsion, sextortion has long existed but lacked an official term. That term, sextortion, was coined by the International Association of Women Judges in response to similar circumstances in which officials were abusing women in exchange for privileges all over the world. Our team conducted interviews with members of the Rhodes University student body. Let's take a look.
Sextortion.
I've never heard of it, like it's my first time.
One of the few things that comes to mind is like abuse of superior position of someone abusing or using their abuse of power to coerce someone into sexual relations unwillingly, and where the other end of the person is doing the exchange on a sexual practice with no consent or willingly consent. I think that's how I see it, yeah.
A lot of women are victims to sextortion and are threatened. They are vulnerable to these types of actions.
But I've seen that it's mostly outwardly experienced by women. Although I will say that a lot of men experience it, and usually they don't report it as much as women do.
Having people speak about it more, because the practicalities, like the legal things, may get tricky. So it's like, I believe that starting small, such as just spreading awareness about it, making sure, talking to people, warning them about this particular person in power and whatnot, that's what I believe goes with it.
So I think definitely making this a crime and making this, putting it in the justice system will definitely protect women's rights and protect their dignity as well.
Thank you to the Rhodes University students for sharing their thoughts. Joining me today in the studio are three esteemed panelists who are pivotal for today's discussion. Today we are joined by Miss Melinda Kotse, who is a former manager from the Anti-Harassment Office at Rhodes University, and Dr. Taryn De Vega, who is a lecturer at Rhodes University under the School of Journalism and Media Studies, Advocate Moloni, who is an acting judge of the High Court in Makhanda, Eastern Cape, and also she is a member of Eastern Cape Bar and the Eastern Cape Societies for Advocates. Greetings, welcome to the show. To kick off our show, I would like to know, is sextortion downright illegal, or is it a favor for a favor? The question is posed to all my panelists.
Yeah, sextortion is downright illegal, it's immoral, and yeah.
Yes, most definitely it is downright illegal. I share the same sentiments.
Thank you for that. Okay, starting with Miss Melinda, I would like to know, does your office or did your office offered services for students who find themselves in such position in this institution?
I used to work at the counseling office, and as such, obviously we would have students come in, and we would be a place to obviously report and a safe space for them after experiencing such a case. So yes, we did offer some support to students in the way that we could.
And how did you build the culture of safe space and allowing students to speak about such matters?
I think first, recognizing the importance of such a big discussion and the gravity of the trauma that could be posed by such a event really helps us build a place in which victims can come and feel safe. And when they do, we take each case with the necessary nuance that would be needed for each case. Yeah.
And when you are speaking about that, we understand that in every institution there are laws, regulation, and protocols that need to be followed. Now my question is, what are protocols that a student needs to follow in order for them to find or receive help that they need?
First things first, keep the evidence, always log when somebody's trying to do any type of sexual extortion towards you. Keep the evidence and thereafter report it to a trusting adult and the person in authority so that the right regulations and measures could be taken.
Okay, so do your services also, or did your services also rendered if the sextortion happened online?
Most cases of sextortions do happen online, so we would offer some support in the way in which we could, obviously working closely with law enforcement so that we don't trip over our own toes. So yeah.
Thank you so much. That was very insightful. That was Miss Melinda. We will take a short break and we will be right back.
You've made it through undergrad, perhaps even settled into a job. The brightest future is in your hands. But how many people achieve anything worthwhile entirely alone? Let's talk about a university globally respected for research, with closer guidance, relevant courses, the potential bridge between aspiring and real success. Rhodes University, where leaders learn.
Thank you. Before the ad break, we had a very insightful discussion with Miss Melinda. We'll now move to Dr. Taryn De Vega. Dr. De Vega, you are a lecturer under the School of Journalism and Media Studies, and you are more on the journalistic and ethical side. Now, I want to know, what are ethical challenges do journalists face, especially when they're trying to report on cases of sextortion that involves minors?
Firstly, thank you for having me. Yeah, definitely we do have problems when it comes to being ethical and thinking of the words and the manner in which you provide the story online. So we always have to look, we have to attack the situations in confidence. So you have to be confidential and be very skeptical and like be very careful in the manner in which you address the situations online.
Okay, you mentioned that you have to be skeptical and careful in a manner that you address the case, right? So now my question is, how can a journalist report or raise awareness in a case of sextortion without re-traumatizing the victim or sensationalizing the issue if they are being careful and skeptical?
The journalist would have to make the victim understand that they're doing this for a good cause. So they have to put the stories out there to educate and to show awareness to the public in order for the victims to be heard and for the victims to be empowered. And the journalist would then have to add a third party to intervene and help the victims that are traumatized by the situations that they unfortunately go through.
Okay, when we are talking about the victims, obviously there is a perpetrator in the middle. So now, is it ever ethical to reveal the identity of someone who's involved in a sextortion case?
I think it would be ethical for the person to be revealed once they've been persecuted and they've been judged and found guilty.
Isn't that protecting the perpetrator?
You're not protecting the perpetrator, but you're trying to find the right person. You're trying to find who the real person is. So in order to be ethical about the situation, you would have to go through law standard procedures, which would then have to only put the person in the public eye if they are found guilty.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. De Vega. We will now take this further and speak to Advocate Moloni. Advocate, you've been in this industry of law for more than 20 years now, and you practice in criminal law, medical negligence and personal injury, constitutional and administrative law. That means we can draw a lot from you legally. Now, my question is, is it sextortion illegal? And if it is, what are punishment that a perpetrator can face for it?
I would also like to start off by thanking you for the invites for this very important discussion. So sextortion is a very, very serious cybercrime because it's something that happens in workplaces, and it's something that happens online.
I like that you mentioned it's something that can happen online, and our animation highlighted that there can be a cyber blackmail. So now I want to know, can someone be charged if sextortion happened online or across the country?
Definitely. Since it is a cybercrime, as long as we have enough evidence to charge the person, then definitely.
Thank you so much. That was Advocate Moloni, and thank you to our panelists for sharing their beautiful thoughts. To take this further, we now turn to our expert, Mrs. Akona Mvelase, who's the founder of African Women Against Corruption Network, that also called Awaken, to unpack the psychosocial impact of sextortion and what can be done to stop it.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Akona Mvelase, and I am the founding director of the African Women Against Corruption Network, which is now affectionately known as Awaken. Awaken is a non-profit organization on a mission to advance the participation of women in the anti-corruption agenda If you think about it, globally, corruption has always been viewed purely from a financial and institutional lens. So you essentially abuse power for personal gain. But what does this abuse of power usually entail? And what does this personal gain usually is all about? Where sex rather than money is the currency of the bribe. And this is why Awaken then enters the picture, because we are challenging this narrative by really just simply, exposing corruption's gender dimensions, because we believe that corruption is not only just a governance failure, but it's also a violation of human dignity, and one that unfortunately disproportionately affects women and girls. Research had told us that women are the ones who are disproportionately affected, but that didn't mean that we are excluding men. That men are also, could be victims of this kind of corruption, because again, what's always at the center of this is who has the power and what are they, who needs the benefit that comes from that power. So from that particular instance, I think it is important that we have now really started to engage men through our Awaken Men initiative that we're currently running now, where we have a separate conversation. You know what? We need everybody to come on board and start really firstly calling it what it is. We are here, we can see you, and we can see what you're doing, and what you're doing is corruption. They are the instruments that we currently help, and they don't necessarily help victims of sexual corruption. What I will say though is that victims of sexual corruption, they don't report this kind of corruption because they don't feel safe. Victims also blame themselves, so they get blamed by the outside people, the outside factors, where you find that if you are in an employment relationship, your colleagues get to know about this, or because it's such a normalized thing, so everybody knows that you got into this position because you had to meet whoever in a hotel. And then, after that, you blame yourself. And we do need points where victims of sexual corruption can come and say, hey, I can come and report this form of corruption at any given point in time. And that can only come from creating safe spaces for dialogue, safe spaces for, students and also staff members to be able to say, hey, they're educated about this problem, they understand the problem on the ground, and also they know, what to look for, what it is, and what are the elements that describe the problem.
Thank you, Ms. Mbelase, for those valuable insights. We'll now move to our audience to take comments who joined us for today's discussion. To the audience, what are your comments from the discussion?
Thank you for having us, and we would like to say that this show has provided a much needed awakening to a certain crisis that is happening in South Africa, and too much that has been covered up by things of corruption, nepotism, as well as the future of young children being under attack.
Thank you so much. What I've learned from today's discussion is that sextortion is a crime, and there needs to be a call out for legislation to be made it an official crime, so that also people can report it.
I think it's very sad that sextortion isn't considered a crime, because it seems as though it is a really big misuse of power and control. And so what I've learned from this show is that sextortion goes beyond just a personal issue, but it's a systemic abuse of trust.
Namdabulela ngoba lapha ulutsha lungafunda kakhulu ngale ngxoxo namhlanje, kwaye lifundile kakhulu singabantu funeka sibambisane sithandane ukuze kubekho uxolo nothando kwilizwe jikelele.
Thank you so much to our audience for participating. Now, handing over to my co-host.
Sextortion is not just harassment or corruption. It is the intersection of both, a power-based and a transactional form of sexual exploitation that drives on power imbalances, psychological coercion, and the abuse of authority. What we've learned today is clear that sextortion is not about consent, but about coercion and control that strips victims of their dignity, harms their mental health, and silences their voices. But above all, it is a form of corruption and abuse that can affect anyone. To our Rhodes University community, our distinguished panelist, Ms. Kotze, Dr. De Vega, and Advocate Moloni, Mrs. Zakona Mvelase from African Women Against Corruption Network, and to our beautiful audience, we sincerely appreciate your participation in this vital discussion. In the dilemma of fragmented truth, glorified corruption, and the silencing of the powerful gun blazing of the voices of the fourth estate, what stories will you tell? Today we were discussing sextortion. I am Nontethelelo Sethulo Chirwa.
And I am Kamna Maduna. And this is AMM TV. Until next time, Mazenetol.